Good morning. Hello. This is 1100 WSG. I'm LaVern, and this is One Street Over. Welcome to it. Hope you're having a great day. I know that I'm excited about it. I've got some weird things going on. It's like I was telling Bill, my headphones aren't working, but now they're working for the microphones. They're not working for the background music. So if for some reason there's music in the background, somebody tell me, because I can't hear the music, Bill. That's what's going on here. So it's kind of unusual situation. They've moved some stuff around. They're always moving stuff around, and I can hear my mics, but I can't hear like if the music bed's behind us. So I'm hoping it's not. I think I got it shut down, and hopefully I think we're good. I think we're good. So I think everything's working right. When you've got a place like this that's a work in progress constantly, they're always trying to improve it. It's that they've moved our screens around like what they've done here. That's really cool. And but
less clutter, maybe it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like less clutter. Let's make sure. Let's talk to me. Make sure your mic's coming through.
Compared to the boards that used to be the big boards that take up most of your desk, you're getting down to a little bitty thing about the size of a laptop there.
Yeah, it looks like you're going through. I'm not hearing you in my headphones though.
Okay, well I hope.
So, but it is showing that you're out there. So you guys, if you're on social media, give me some commentary. Let me know that you're hearing Bill and that you're hearing me just fine. And Bill is here. I swear, it seems like every Monday that you're in here, there's something weird going on. You know, do you bring it in with
Just
you?
me. My wife told me that.
That's so funny. Well, because we had storms last time, and then
What'll happen today, this afternoon?
But do what?
We're going to have some storms this afternoon.
Oh my goodness!
And
What's
tonight.
going on with the storms? Kind of update us on that, because we've had so much rain. It has been just crazy. It has been nuts. So what's going on
Well,
with
it's
the
coming
storms?
in late this afternoon, some storms, and tonight, and then rest of the week's going to be pretty nice. And next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday should be very nice weather to get out and cut the lawn and do whatever you want to.
Okay.
After the wetness goes away.
Well, see, that's good, because I've got some. We're getting ready to do some work on the house, and our crawl space has been just so wet.
Yeah.
It has been unreal.
I can imagine.
Well, and our sump pump went out one time, and so we had to get a new sump pump in there. And we had they came in and did like this thing where they were trying to do some improvements. You know how they're like, wet crawl space, we can help.
Yeah.
And I did some ads for some company back, when I was doing the U-Turn LaVern thing. Because, I would do ads for different things, and they'd come in and do things in my house. And this was one of them. And they came in and dried out the crawl space, and then they put down this layer of plastic that at the time was okay, but it's been 20 years. And so now the plastic's kind of gotten loose and balled up, and it just needs to be pulled out.
Yeah,
and so we've got a youngin' that's going to help us come do that. A young Jake Burnett, he's going to come out and he's going to help us out with it. We're going to pay him to crawl under there and
I used to do that. I used to sell satellite antennas back in the 80s to get my son through college, and I had to crawl under houses. No, you don't know what you're going to meet under there.
No, you don't. What's the worst thing you ever met under a house? A snake?
Snake.
Yeah.
Wasn't much I could do. He slithered off. They don't want any part of us either,
Yeah.
more so than we. But it was some unusual houses, I'll say that.
I'll bet.
I remember one I put in, especially out toward Barren Plains, and the whole place was swampy. So when I dug the hole to put the post in to hold the dish, it filled up with water real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a difficult, and I had to go under that house too. It was wet under there.
Well,
anyway, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's a young person's game, isn't it, hon? I swear.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and my husband's he's like, we got to find a kid that can help us with this. And so, and my friend Muriel's son has said, I'll do it. He's in college and he's making money, so he's going to come out and give us a hand with that. And I'm hoping they're going to get after that today or tomorrow. So.
Somebody young like that going in college, they could make a lot of money if in the summertime if they'll just put it out there. People my age and all would love to pay somebody to come mow the yard or do things and dig holes or whatever.
I got a guy for you.
It's just jobs are available.
Yeah.
They could be making some pretty good money.
Well, if you need somebody, I know Jake's trying to, I mean, he's going to be home this summer. So, yeah, because, I mean, I'm going to need him for a few things, but I don't have a ton of stuff for him. You know, we're just trying to kind of, our house has fallen into, I mean, we have not done a lot of, real big maintenance on our house since we moved. I mean, it's just, we've been so busy. And so we're having to do it. It looks, things are falling apart, so.
That happens.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. That's how we say hello here. We just kind of unload and chit chat and all those things. Bill is in the house, and this is History Monday, the second Monday on 1100 WSGI. We just love to do history, and everybody's been really excited about this. And last time we had basically just our social media audience. We did not have a terrestrial signal. We had some signal issues. Everything should be working today. Everything looks good. Your mic is working on social media, even though I can't hear it in my headphones. We're good to go. So where do you want to start, brother?
Well, I never know till the last minute, but people ask me questions, and so I use some of those. And somebody asked me the other day, we were talking about Greyhound buses and how many places in Springfield they were coming out of. But one I remember the most, and I have a picture of this, is the G.S. Moore building. Okay. Not many people know about it, but if you look at the Main Street front of the building, you'll see a big door on their right. And part of it's been filled in, and some of them haven't. But it looks very small. But back then, the buses went in that door. They let people out, and it made a U-turn inside the building and came out on 7th Avenue.
Where exactly again?
You know where G.S. Moore building is on the corner of Main Street, South Main, and what is it, 7th Avenue?
Okay.
Okay, it's on the corner there.
Okay.
Across the street is Brown and Brown.
Okay.
And so anyway, you went in.
Trying to visualize it, yeah.
You went in the front, where the bus came in, it'd come down Main Street. Did I say 5th Avenue? I didn't mean to say it, but anyway, it's on Main Street and 7th. They would enter the building on Main Street, and inside it made a U-shaped turn and come out on 7th Avenue. Now, that big door is there too, but it's been filled in, so you look at it and say, bus couldn't fit in here, but they filled in the door. But the Greyhound buses used to come in there, and it was great because people could be inside.
Yeah.
They were down to Colonial Hotel, which doesn't exist, after a period of time. It was torn down. And the bus station has been around different places. There's Milady Beauty Shop down the street there from that on South Main. It used to stop there. It was a place where Gupton's Motors used to be coming up 5th Avenue. They used to stop there. They had different locations. But what I was getting around to, somebody asked me, said, well, what did it cost? Because I know that people would pick the bus up in the morning and ride to Nashville to work and come back. What did that cost? And I found it cost $7 a week to travel there and back every day by bus. And if you've been on a modern day bus, it's really, really comfortable. But it wasn't comfortable in the old buses. Well, I guess it's comfortable for that time.
Probably like a school bus kind of set.
Yeah, like that. But anyway, I find out that not anybody hardly remembers the G.S. Moore building bus station. And I can remember getting on and going to Nashville, and I remember the old bus station in Nashville getting out. And anyway, that's different. That was probably the best bus station in town, other than a Colonial Hotel, because they had an awning you could go under and get out of the bus, and they had a tickets office there and all that. But anyway, that's another person asked me a question about they see on the old pages on Facebook and a lot of things, old photographs of people in the 1800s. And of course, the first question they ask me usually is, why don't they smile? And
how funny.
What part of that reason is, when they took a photograph back in the 1800s, you had to stay still for, maybe a minute or two, because if you did, it'd get blurry. And so you had to stay still. Well, you couldn't hold a smile that long, so they just didn't smile. They were just very serious looking, and all the families are that way. And then what had happened, when you start seeing old photographs of people in front of houses, that usually transgressed in the late 1800s because there was a new photographic way of processing pictures that came about in the late 1800s. So some photographers took advantage of that, and they would travel the country in a wagon, take their photo equipment with them, and they would take pictures of people in front of their house for a certain amount of money, and they would process it while they were there on their wagon. So people paid them for that. So you see so many. I have a family picture of the Woodards all in front of their old house, and it was taken in 1890, something like that, and a lot of people. And it was a very good quality photograph.
I've got some of those of my family. I've got one. I talk about my grandmother that we called her Mama, and she went by the name Sunshine. That was her middle name, but she went by Sunshine. I've got the beautiful portrait of her in a chair when she was like not even a year old, maybe, or maybe a year, 18 months old. And I mean, good land. It's a beautiful picture. Just a beautiful portrait.
Well, you mentioned chair.
So old.
These guys would carry furniture on their wagon.
Velvet chairs and stuff like that.
Chairs with arms on them.
That's what this is.
And what they would do, you see so many of these photographs, and it'll have a name. I can't remember one right now. And say Springfield, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me, where were they? I said, well, what they did was they were here for a short time, the photographers, with their chairs and their scenery and stuff they used, and they would rent a place in Springfield that people could come and get a picture made of them only or a family. And if you'll notice in a lot of these photographs, furniture is about the same.
Yeah, very
So they would set up, and they would be there for a short time. So it would be hard for us to find a place in Springfield named this ABC Photography or something, because they were just there for a short time.
Right.
The old Randolph and House building, they used to use that as part of that to take photographs in for a while. And that happened, around the late 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s, that they would go around and make a temporary position. And they did it in Nashville, they did it in Springfield. Springfield was a very well-known town back around the turn of the century because they made a lot of money in tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
Then, and whiskey.
And whiskey, yeah.
So there were a lot of wealthy people here. So there was a lot going on. Springfield was very, history-wise, very noted, for a lot of things. And it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of people are listening that haven't been from here. There's more and more people around me from California and Oregon and also I enjoy telling them about some of the things past, and I love the funny things, telling stories. And I'll tell you some in a minute that helps you remember what Springfield was like back then. Another question somebody asked me about parks. When did we have the first park in Springfield or parks? And there was, and most people don't know about Shell Park. Shell Park was go up 431 North, and top of the hill, past the Dollar General store there, top of the hill, when it levels off, there's a couple of houses on the left, and then down toward a barn, and that was called Shell Park. And they lit it. They had lights there back in the early 1900s. But what they did mostly with it was they would have horse shows there, and they had a little ring where people would walk, ride their horse around the ring doing different things. And during fair time, they would judge them, the best horse.
So they would hold the fair out there.
The fair wasn't, but the horse part was. The fair most likely was in a tobacco warehouse in Springfield. It started out on south part of Springfield years ago. The fair did in the middle 1800s. In fact, Robinson County was one of the first counties to have a fair. It was right after the Civil War, and they started doing that. In fact, the Ku Klux Klan had a booth there. But the Ku Klux Klan wasn't known for what they are today. They were doing good things, but in sort of a peculiar way.
That's a hard thing to even think about. And I have had people tell me that, and
well, they don't.
But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but that's crazy that they would.
I say good thing. One of the things they did, if the community knew that a husband was beating the wife, they'd go out and have a midnight call with him.
They would take care of it, huh?
They would take care of it, and so you do this again,
Yeah.
you're going to get flogged.
It
Something.
very quickly turned
It turned the other way.
Yeah.
And there's stories of why and so on. I wouldn't want to get into that.
Right.
But another memory that people ask me about is where the police and fire department were back in the early days. And in my time, in the 50s and the 40s, not 40s really for me, but in the 50s, I remember on 7th Avenue, this would be located behind the Bell Building, where there's a parking lot now. And there's a house on the corner. It's a church, Episcopal church. Now, that used to be a lady that ran a lunch counter there, and people would eat lunch. And it was a boarding house, too. But anyway, it's still there. But the parking lot was where the fire and chief and the police department were. But next to them, if you were facing them to the right, was Grower Supply. Grower Supply sold farm stuff like seed and fertilizer and, stuff to grow plants. And then above that building was a little space that clubs in town would hold their club meeting on. It was a stairway to the right. It went up, and clubs were very, very popular back the turn of the century. There was a lot of them, a lot of women's clubs, and then they met in women's homes too. They had Coca-Cola parties, they would call them. That was their treat. Coca-Cola was
funny.
I remember a man.
Is that when it had stuff in it that was?
Oh, yeah, probably. There's a man, Mr. Dawson Shannon, lived to be about 100, and he told me one time, I said, Mr. Shannon, why do you think you've lived so long? He said, I never had a Coca-Cola to my lips. And
how funny.
He considered that his length of life because he never drank a Coke.
Yeah.
But back then they would have Coca-Cola parties, sort of like they do in California now, and marijuana parties. But they would do that, and it's interesting. I'm doing a collection of. I've looked up all the clubs that were going on here at the time. It's interesting. Some of them still around, like Short Story Club and things like that.
Some of them that meet up in what is the name of the house where the ladies meet?
Glen.
Yeah.
At
the Glen.
Glen Memorial. Yeah, at the Glen.
At the Glen. I mean, the first time I heard that when I was relatively new, I was like, oh, at the Glen. It just sounds
it's named after the man.
I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's so elegant sounding and so southern. At the Glen.
Our first library is at the Glen.
Yeah.
If you go, was a sidewalk, I don't think it is now, around to the right side, there's a door still there. And I remember as a kid going to the library and walking down the sidewalk going there. Miss Sue Taylor was a librarian. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have many books, about the size of this right here, And I'd check out a book and go home, because I lived 3 or 4 streets down from there, so we walked all the time to town and back, or a bicycle or something. And I remember Miss Sue Taylor, a little short lady, and that was where the first library was.
That's so cool.
Commercial, town library anyway. But anyway, the Glen is another story, and the women's club are keeping it up. They're.
Oh yeah, well that's what the sampler's all about. Every year, the Christmas sampler is to keep the building up and do the maintenance there and all that. Before you get off the subject of the parks, okay, so you were talking about that first park.
Yeah, we'll get back into that.
Well, which was of the parks we know now? Which was the first one? Garner Street or the Travis Price? What do you know the background of Travis Price?
Roger Blackwood owned that land, and Roger used Travis to negotiate with the city, and they were going back and forth. Travis was a lawyer, Travis Price. Mm-hmm. He was also mayor for 20 years, but he wanted to give that land, and I don't know, maybe it was some kind of tax or something. I don't know. I should have asked Roger about that.
Blackwell was the one who owned it.
Blackwood, yeah.
Well, then Blackwood. Why did they name it Travis Price then?
Well, Travis was Roger's lawyer, and he thought a lot of him. And he helped him with this land, and he told Travis that I want to do something for you. I want to name this park after you.
Well, that's awful nice.
So he did. And there's a little cemetery in the back of where Roger Blackwood used to live, and that's where Roger's buried, back this small cemetery. But it's not any Blackwoods in it. It's just it's some other people, and he just wanted to be buried there, so that's where he is. But that's how that park got its name. We also had a area called a park that never was developed out at Woodland Street School. If you turn there, Woodland Street School on the 22nd Avenue, there's a field, there's open space there. And that was set aside, it was given to the city by Ben Sorey and back in the 30s, and to be a park, and they never developed it. And they now, I think there's a sign out there about changing the zoning of it or something, but I don't know whatever happened after the city owned it. I don't know what they did. There were lots laid out and all that. Now, one of them, I'm going to give you two questions today, and I'll give you. Well, people that's on, they can only do this online, So, first question is.
So, are you going to give a prize for it?
Yeah, I'm going to give $10 of my own money.
$10 of his own
tight,
money.
that's a lot.
We will have to figure out how to get it to you, but this is and so we're going to give them.
Now, you're going to have to put your answer on social media.
You're going to put it on social media. The first person that gets it.
10 minutes. It is now 25 after.
Okay, let's do it official. Yeah, I've got 7:24 on my Google calendar here. Okay, so
where was Vernon Street?
Where was Vernon Street?
Or it may have been Vernon Avenue, but
where was Vernon Street or Vernon Avenue? And you have until 8:24 to answer that question. If you want $10,
we'll get to after we do this one. I have another one too. That's really more interesting.
Where was Vernon Street or Vernon Avenue? You've got till 8:24 to answer that question. First
put us back to Grower Supply to put a story with that. There's a lady here now. His name is Kay Brown Doris. She's on my web. She's talked to me all the time. We're good friends. She and her husband. When she was a teenager, they sent her to Grower Supply to pick up some peat moss. Well, she thought they meant is a person named Pete Moss. So she went in there looking for Pete Moss, and they didn't know anybody by that name. And so she found out it was a bag of peat moss.
That's
she was supposed
funny.
to pick up.
Where's Pete?
Yeah. Well,
I need to take him to
that house. Knowing stories like that
funny.
And keeps you in the remembrance of Grower Supply. Another place that many people around here knew is Gold Implement Company. Do you remember? Do you ever heard of Gold Implement?
Maybe.
It was out in Barren Plains.
Was it around from the? It's familiar to me.
It's been here a long time. Was here a long time.
But when did it close?
Has
it been?
Closed in 2012.
Okay, well, I bet my husband knew it.
Yeah,
going
to Barren Plains, it was on the right, and they sold Alice Chalmers and New Holland farm equipment to small farmers.
Yeah,
and they lasted a long time. But anyway, Mr. Goad, D. Goad, works at Ace Hardware now. He's a manager there, but his grandfather D.L. Goad, came from Lebanon. And he came over and got in the implement business with some other people. Joe Mack Lipscomb Sr. was one of them that I remember because his son and I were real close friends. But he came in the 1920s, and they got into something called Springfield Implement. And there were several people involved in that. And they were down where they were. They were down across from the fairgrounds where Doris Milling is down there around there. They had a place down there. Plus, later, Goad bought them out, and then he opened a place up on it's across from the archives. What's the name of that street? I don't know. I lost my mind there for a minute. But where the archives is, there's a building across the road. It's a 2-story building, and Gold Implement was there selling farm equipment. One a funny story was a man named A.G. Barbie. It worked there. And he worked upstairs working on farm equipment, repairing and replacing things. And he had a drinking problem.
Oh no!
And so they were out in front of the building one day, and they looked up, and all the windows were red. And so they go up there to see what's going on, and he had too much liquor, and he had got the red paint out that they painted their equipment with, and he had painted all the windows, the walls, every piece of equipment in there red.
What? Was he an international fan? Is that what it was?
No, he was he probably didn't even remember it.
That's hysterical.
But then they moved to Barren Plains in 1962. and closed in 2012. But
see, I think the reason why I recognize the name is because of D up at Ace. When you said D Goad, because I mean, because my husband worked.
His father was Bill Goad.
Yeah.
His brother was Don Goad.
Yeah.
Bill and Don ran that thing until
Okay.
Bill died. Don ran it, and then Don lived down the road, maybe 3 or 400 yards from it.
I think that's why it's familiar to me.
Yeah.
I finally had to make my husband quit. The only reason he was working there is for the discount, and he'd spend too much money. I was like, it's just too much time and too much money. I'm like, that's enough. That is just enough. And he still is like, I could go back to work at Ace for a little bit. I'm like, no, you spend 3 times as much what you make in. Yes,
Right.
No, on things we don't
too.
need. But anyway.
My father was a hardware salesman in the early years, and he traveled different towns in Middle Tennessee, and I went with him. And I got familiar with hardware stores, and I'm looking for something to do. I'd help put up stock for them and things like that. One time, I was down in Dover. Will Brigham had a hardware store there, Brigham Hardware. And as you went into Dover, right on the right, and this summertime, I went with my dad, and I was messing around in the back while he was doing his business and just looking for something to do. And I had a whip, and I'd take a whip and run it over a rafter or something, just playing. And so I was back there playing. I was 13 years old or something.
Sure.
And there was a man that came in, wanted a half a joint of stovepipe. In the summertime, I don't know why he wanted a stovepipe, but he wanted a half of a piece of a stovepipe.
Yeah.
So this guy working for Mr. Brigham came in the back where I was, and the man that wanted the stovepipe was right behind him, but he didn't know the customer was behind him. So he comes in and he says to me, he says, some fool out here wants a half a joint of stovepipe. And he looked around and saw the man, and he said, and this kind gentleman was good enough to buy the other half.
Oh, how funny. How funny.
I was sitting
Stuck
there
his
going,
foot in
that
his
is
mouth.
the quickest response I've ever known.
That is hysterical. That is so funny. It's like, oops, shouldn't have said that. That's funny. Well, the reason Mark liked to work at Ace Hardware is because he worked in a hardware store with his dad.
I love
as
hardware
a kid.
stores. Yeah.
He loves hardware stores. If he finds an old hardware store, he's like, oh, we got to stop. And so that's everybody's like, your husband was working at Ace. I'm like, yeah, I know.
What's so
And
nice
I couldn't
about
get him
that,
out
you
of
don't have
there.
to walk all these distances looking
Yeah.
at aisle numbers and trying
Yeah.
to figure out stuff,
Oh, he loved
You
hardware.
walk
He
in the
loves
Ace, you
hardware
ask
stores.
him, where's the screwdriver?
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
the left-handed screwdriver?
Yeah,
Well, they're
yeah.
right over here.
But anyway, go ahead. I just
There's
want to interject
then
there.
I had several people ask me about Barren Plains because nobody seems to know when it started or whatever. But the best I can find in research, it started about 1830 with a settlement of a few people, and they got their first post office at 1839. They had a post office.
Okay.
Then during the Civil War, like a lot of post offices, it closed. And then right after the Civil War, it opened back up again. And then in 1907, it closed permanently. But Barren Plains is a very interesting place because there was a lot of families, like the Garrett family, for instance, that were there for generations. And Barren Plains had a high school, and it played Swanee in basketball.
Wow.
They played
Okay.
Clarksville. They had a good basketball team. And the building that the gym was in is still there. They use it for storing hay or something now, but if you go there near the church, the building is rectangular
That
shaped.
was
and it's
the
got
school.
little windows at the top.
Really? And that's where the school was.
The school was, right next to there.
You got 2 minutes, folks. Where was Vernon Street or Vernon Avenue? If you can give us that, if you can answer that question before 8:34, we gave
And
you
if
10
you
minutes.
can catch me, I'll give you $10.
If you can answer it, he's going to give you $10. So you got a couple of minutes left. First person to answer, where was Vernon Street or Vernon Avenue? You're going to get a $10 prize this morning.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
go ahead. I just wanted to go ahead and
People's
interject that before the
archive.
time runs out.
If
If you're at the
you can't do
archives,
it.
you can't play. It's what Bill says. If you're part of the
Yeah.
archives, you can't play.
They'll find it real quick. But anyway, more about Barren Plains. And I think there's not been anything worked up on Barren Plains. That's why I
Right.
sort of researched it. But there was a postmaster named Isaac Mason there. And Mason's another name that's real popular around the northern part of Robinson County. They're probably all kin. I have a postcard in my possession that's stamped Barren Plains 1902.
Oh, wow.
And it's it's top notch. It looks like brand new.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
in a plastic holder
Yeah.
and all that.
That's really cool.
In 1856, they caught a panther in middle of Barren Plains, and he was about 8 feet long. He was full grown.
Why was there a panther here?
There were panthers around at that time. But they caught one and killed it in Barren Plains in 1856.
We had panthers?
These little tidbits of information I like because it gives us a
We
insight
had
of what
panthers in this part of the
we had
country?
panthers, yeah.
Really?
Killing cattle. So they wanted to get rid of them.
No idea we had panthers.
We had buffalo here years ago, a long time
Now, I knew we
ago,
had buffalo, but panthers? That
Panthers.
blows my mind because, every now and then somebody will put up some kind of weird picture like there's something around now.
Well, my wife saw one, she says, and she described it to a T outside our window of our house. But that was, 7 or 8 years ago, I guess.
Wow.
And then I talked to a TWRA guy, and he said, well, that's very possible. And so-
Really?
but I never heard any more about it after
I've
that.
never heard that. I mean, I knew, we've had bears show up, and then, of course, we had the big zebra saga. That was hysterical. Ed the zebra, and it turns out the zebra's name is Zeke. Just like my dog. We found that out yesterday. They finally caught him.
Yeah, I wonder what those people had to pay to catch him. Pay somebody. Helicopter and all that.
All that. Can you imagine that, Bill? Oh, yeah.
What do you do with a zebra if you have one? What do you do with it?
It's a novelty.
Not
It's
like a horse,
Yeah,
You ride it.
it's like I got a zebra. It's kind of like there's somebody around here who's got a camel. I know there's people with camels around here.
Oh, I don't know. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, because they used them in the nativity scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
And we've also, I think, I was at church yesterday, and there's supposed to be something about camels during our VBS. I think that's going on. I mean, I'm pretty sure I heard that, and I'm assuming they meant real camels. So, I mean, people like those exotic animals and stuff, and there's certain licensing. And we have passed the timeline on that deadline. They didn't. Let's see if anybody answered it, Bill. I don't think they did. You going to stump? You didn't think they would? Okay, let me double check here. I'm checking WSGI page and my page. Okay, so far I don't see any answers. I think you stumped them on that one, Bill.
Well, if you want to know, you can go to the archives, and they have plats and streets that don't exist anymore on things. So, but where it was, if you go out South Main, right before you turn on 22nd Avenue, which is a little hill there's a fire plug. And that's where Vernon Avenue was. It went, it's sort of a ditch there now. It goes back to a tobacco warehouse. So they got rid of Vernon Avenue when they built that tobacco warehouse.
Okay.
They didn't need it anymore because it was on their property. But anyway, that's where Vernon Avenue was. I don't know where they got the name.
John Cohey is wanting to know where was the Barren Plains post office?
I don't know.
Okay. We'll have to research that, John, and let you know. Tell you what, let me pause and do a break. There's just so many things I want to tell you, and it's almost 20 till already, Bill. So, talking about Travis Price Park earlier, got the count in from Terry. There was 430 kids out there for the fishing rodeo on Saturday. 430 kids, and so we need a bigger lake. We need a
more
bigger
fishing poles.
Yeah, can you imagine?
More worms.
Oh my goodness, 430 kids. That's incredible. I'll be anxious to talk to Caleb Stratton on Monday to see exactly how big of a record that is, because, I mean, we are the biggest one, I think, in the state. So that's pretty cool. Also, too, the movie The Life of Me is coming out. It premiered somewhere in Georgia.
What is it?
The Life of Me. It's the one that Terry Martin's in, that he got recruited for.
Yeah.
And he's like a bad sheriff in it or something. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see this movie. And one of my students,
I can picture him as a bad sheriff.
one of my students, Alex Maddox, is in it too. And so I'm super excited to see this and see all the locals. It's going to be fun. But I think we need to have a big old block party or something to see that movie. Let's pause and do a break, though, because we need to talk about Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market. She announced that they're doing a summer, let's see, let me say it just like Julie would say. I can't say it just like Julie would say it. Our summer sale series is kicking off. It kicked off actually on Saturday with Chorizo, Chorizo. I don't know how to say that. It's like a But they've got a big sale on this, and it's like a sausage that's spicy, I think. But each week she says she's going to announce one of their pork products at a buy one, get one free of equal or lesser value. Each product will be on sale until Friday at closing, with a new product to be announced each week. So it's chorizo, I don't know how to say that. But that's what's on sale. The Summer Sale Series kicked off on Saturday, and they've got that on sale again. They're going to have a big different item every week. You need to get in there and check it out. And they've also just restocked on their creamed honey and different flavors from lemon, strawberry, cinnamon, peach. It's just great stuff. Oh my goodness. I love going into Bernard Farms. I was in there last week. We stood there and talked for 2 hours to Julie. It was so much fun just kind of catching up with her and Steve, but they do just great things. They are just fun to see a farm like that that's just kind of doing the store and all that they're doing to make sure that farming continues for the next generation. It's just a beautiful thing. And if you want to go by and be inspired by all the things that they do and get some really good food, you can do that as well. Don't forget, Father's Day is coming up this weekend. And if you want to get your dad a great treat, go in there and put them together a basket from their meat counter. Go in there and get them some chops and some steaks and some chorizo, anything like that. Your hubby's going to love that. Dad's going to love that. Or, can go by there and buy them breakfast or lunch, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Saturdays, when you can get breakfast items while they last. Same thing with lunch. They cook they cook so much, and then when it sells out, it sells out. Sunday, they're open from 1 to 4. Great place to go by and just take a break from the summer heat and just have some good conversation. Great place to go. Love them out there and appreciate them sponsoring one street over. Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market. When you go by there, they're at 7536 Clay Gregory Road, 7536 Clay Gregory Road in Orlinda. Be sure and let them know that U-Turn sent you. And nobody got your question. Do you have another one for us?
We will at 10 minutes till.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Okay, we'll do it at 10 till. Maybe just a few minutes before in case we get so we got time to cover it.
Well, we keep on about Barren Plains.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, Barren Plains, there was a man named Garrett. Mm-hmm. Of course, as I said, Garrett's is a big name in Barren Plains. There was a lot of them over several generations. But there was a Texas congressman named D.E. Garrett. And he came to Barren Plains in 1916 to christen the new high school they had there. So Barren Plains has had some real well-known people.
Dignitaries.
Yeah, it's amazing, a little bit. Now it doesn't look like much to us, it's not much there. But there were 3 or 4 different stores there in the early 1900s, and I've got the names of the men that owned the stores. They had a sawmill there.
Okay.
They had a painter named W.A. Dewar, and that was in the 1800s. They had a carpenter, W.T. Jones. He's not related to me, I don't think. Had 2 blacksmiths, Page and a Bagby, a man named Page and a man named Bagby. They had 2 doctors in Barren Plains, Dr. John Scott and Miles Scott. Must have been father and son or brothers or something. But can you imagine Barren Plains? It must have been a, fairly populated area in the early 1900s, but this was in the 1800s. They had the doctors there, and it had 2 filling stations at one time, and they had a hot dog stand where Gold Implement was.
Oh,
there was
funny.
A hot dog stand there in the early 1900s.
How funny.
Ralph Holman was a man I knew. Holman's is another name. It's real prevalent in
Holman Jewelers.
And so Ralph Holman had a store, a general store. And the funny thing, Ralph loved to pull pranks, He had a cranked phone in the back of the building on a wall, but it wasn't hooked up to anything. He didn't have a phone. And this guy comes in and says, I want to use your phone. And Ralph says, well, it's back there on the wall. But let me tell you, when you call, the operator is real hard of hearing. You're going to have to holler real loud.
Oh, how funny.
They're all standing there watching him. He goes in the back, and he's cranking, and he starts hollering. And so in a minute, the guy comes back, and Ralph says, well, how did it go? He said, well, you're right. She is very hard of hearing, but said, I think I got the message over to her I wanted. And Ralph had a little box one time with a little animal. It's supposedly animal. It was the thing. He had his glove. He had a glove on and go inside the box. But they thought it was. He named it some name. It was very vicious. And people could look in the screen in the front and see it moving in there. So he would get somebody. They'd look down real close, and he'd pop that door open and push his hand out, and they would fall backwards.
Scare them half to death.
But Ralph would do stuff like that. You just had to know him. And then they had a Barren Plains Men's Club. I was a member of it, and that's not too long ago. And we met in the old church building, I think it was, or I forget what building what it used to be. But the women would come, and the wives cooked supper, and the men's club met, just men. So one time, Carney Bell used to dress up and portray somebody named Percy. I forget his last name, Percy something. And he would go around town fooling people of who he was, and he came one night. So he comes in, and he's got these shabby clothes on, and he sits down, and he's wanting to know if he could get a meal. Well, nobody knew who he was except me. I knew who he was. I'd seen him do it before. And so he said, "Don't tell him." No, I wouldn't. So I'm just sitting there. And he would sit down next to somebody, and he looked pretty ratty, sit down next to somebody and scoot up close to him, and they would scoot back. He'd scoot over, and they'd scoot over.
Oh, my goodness.
And he did that all night, and some of them got up and just went around the other side of the table. They didn't want to be near him.
With him.
He probably smelled bad, too, the way
yeah.
he did it. But he was so funny, and then he would reveal who he was, and then everybody knew Carney. He did that one time at Springfield Drugs, Mr. Fred Harris, when he owned it, Fred Harris Jr. If you remember
had the lunch
stand
counter
in the back, around to the left was a counter where you can get a Coke and sandwich. But there was a little shelf right there, had toothbrushes and toothpaste and dental floss and all that on it. Carney came in one time dressed as Percy. And he comes over and he's looking at it, and Mr. Fred says he didn't recognize him, which I'm surprised. I thought he would, but he didn't. And I'm sitting there not far from you, watching this.
Hysterical.
And he says, he tells Mr. Harris, "I want a toothbrush." And Mr. Harris says, "Okay." And he comes over and picks them out and says, I recommend this medium. He said, "Well, I'd never used one before. Could you show me how it's done?" He said, "Well, you just brush it." He said, "Well, do it for me." He said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And Carney did that all the time. It was so funny to watch him because he really was dressed up where you couldn't recognize him.
That's hysterical.
Anyway,
he should have been like on the stage. Then it sounds like.
Well,
it sounds like he was just.
He did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's really funny.
Now,
people where Barren Plains is. You're talking about Barren Plains.
Barren Plains. My neighbor's not from here. He didn't know where Barren Plains is.
So there's a lot of people that are probably going, "Where is Barren Plains?" So.
Yeah, you go out 161.
Okay.
I tell you what, you go to the top of the hill of Springfield, very top of the hill when you're going north. There's a Dollar General store on the left, and you keep on going up, and you go another 300 yards, and the road turns to the left. One road, there's an off-road, goes off to the left. Actually, there's a little street there before that it goes off. That used to be the road, and they closed it years ago because of the plant next to it. But anyway, going down there and take a left, and that takes you on 160. We're going out of town on 41, actually. Take a left on 161, and you go straight to Barren Plains. That's beautiful country out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are realizing it, and they're building houses out there now. But a lot of land. The Corbin Creek, I go out there all the time, buy plants. Mm-hmm. They're out there. Mm-hmm. And
love the Corbins.
Then you go a few miles, and you come to the town of Barren Plains. You'll see a place on the right that used to be Gode's. You see there's a Mexican restaurant there that they tell me is really good. I think there's a pizza place there, but that's about it. Okay. And the road turns quickly to the left. 161 goes. It used to go straight on. They closed it. But anyway, if you turn left and go down there a couple of miles, there's a new restaurant there that I go to all the time. It's really, really good. It's called the Classy Guilt, and they're known for barbecue, but they have the best vegetable stuff. They have chicken casseroles out of this world, and it's a small place, a little white building. Okay. And they're open on Thursday through Saturday.
So do people still have Barren Plains on their address? Do you think?
No, because
I
there's
didn't
no
think
post
so.
office there.
Yeah, so it would all be Springfield. Okay, okay. Just like I actually am
It
technically,
didn't even have a zip code.
I think I'm technically in Pleasant View, but I have a Springfield address
Yeah.
because I'm like on the line. I'm in the county where I am. You know, the only reason why the city goes out as far as it does really is because of the wastewater plant, I guess. But I'm a county.
Yeah, but you're not too far from the Cedar Hill zip code.
Cedar Hill. Yeah, I said
Not
Pleasant
Pleasant
View.
View.
Cedar
Yeah.
Hill.
I
Yeah,
thought you
thank you
must
for
have
straighting me
moved.
out. No, Cedar Hill then. Thank you for keeping me
Yeah.
straight. Well, I'm not from here, Bill. You know, I don't
Well,
know
you
all
have to
the...
live here 40 years before you're a native.
How many?
40 years. I don't
See,
know.
I'm not there yet.
I just made that
I've
up.
only been here 33, so I'm not considered a native yet.
I want to cover
Kids are.
one, it's getting close.
Yeah, it's
to
getting
10 minutes
close.
Still. So I want to talk about the sheriffs.
Okay.
And here's a question, but this is not the real question. Of the sheriffs that were in office, one died in office. So which one? There was Denzel Alley, there was J. Mark Murphy, and Ted Emery.
Okay.
Which one of those three died in office?
So is that your $10 question?
No, but
Okay.
leading up to it.
Okay. What's the $10 question?
Well, somebody give them just a minute or two to write on social media
Yeah.
which one died in office.
No, that's not the question, though.
not the
but
question.
Any of y'all know that?
And I want to mention to you, well, the question will be $10 question is, where was Tin Cup Alley?
Where was Tin Cup Alley?
We've all heard of Tin Pan Alley.
Yeah.
And a lot of towns have a place like that. It started, a music company started called Tin
Okay.
Pan Alley back years ago around Michigan, I think, or something. But
Y'all's was Tin Cup Alley.
Tin Cup Alley, where
Tin
was
Cup
it?
Alley.
That's the question.
Okay.
Now, back to the sheriffs.
Let me do a break real quick before
Okay.
we get to
All
that.
right.
I need to talk about Barry. This is my last break, and then we'll get right. We could talk for 2 hours, Bill. This is fun. Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. Guys, what do you need to know about real estate? No matter what it is you're looking for, you can reach out to Barry and Rebecca if you've got a specific zip code you're looking for. Maybe it's you want to be a realtor and you want to be mentored into the real estate game. Barry will tell you, though, he's going to be super honest with you. He might talk you out of it. He says, you got to make sure it's a suitable income for you or suitable, because, you're always on call. I've been out with them doing different things and they'll get a phone call and one of them's gone. Because they have to chase it when the chase is on. And so Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty, he is the broker here in Springfield. She has an agency office out in White House, and they combined those two to bring you Exit Prime Realty a couple of years ago. They've been with the Exit team, though, from the very start. Rebecca was looking for the right company that crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's to make sure that she had everything she needed when it came to being a realtor. When she decided to go into real estate many years ago, one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist, she will tell you Exit has been there for them in support in every way they've needed. You can find them on social media very easily. Barry Richards, Rebecca Richards, Exit Prime Realty, and all kinds of things will pop up, and it'll tell you about his marketing background. It'll talk about how they've handled historic properties, that their cross-Planians have been here for about 30 years. They've been in Robertson County about as long as me, but they have a very diverse background. So they specialize in Robertson County properties, but also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky, because also like me, they're Kentuckians originally. So if you want to reach out to them, sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buy BUYRobertsonCounty.com. Rebecca's number is 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425. Always please let them know that you turned Cincha, and let's get on back into it. And so we give that question.
Okay,
one
where
more
was the
time.
location of Tin Cup Alley?
Tin Cup Alley. Where was the location of Tin Cup Alley? You've got until we asked that question a couple of minutes ago, so we'll say just right before the top of the hour we'll look for an answer. So if you can get that in before the end of the show, you will win $10, and then we'll figure out how to get that to you. But you can't if you work at the archives, you can't answer. Phil says no fair. So where was Tin Cup Alley? Now, where were you wanting to go with the sheriffs? You want to talk about
Now, we'll go back to the sheriffs. Yeah. Which one died in office? Well, J. Mark Murphy died in office in 1931.
Okay.
And what he did, there was a report of a man named Everett Holloway who was beating his wife on Tin Cup Alley. He had a house there. And so they went out to arrest him. Well, when he went to the front door, Holloway opened the door with a shotgun and shot J. Mark Murphy point blank in the chest.
Oh, my goodness.
He didn't die then. They got him and took him to Nashville, and several days later he died of the gunshot wound. But that's the only one I know of that died in the office.
Debbie Ellis had the correct answer to the Sheriff Murphy. Now, that was not the money question,
No, it's
Deb.
not the money question, no.
That's not the money question.
Yeah, a lot of people who live here and know about
she
J.
knew
Mark Murphy.
She knew that it was Sheriff Murphy that died in office.
But he was shot on Tin Cup Alley.
Oh, okay. So that's where he was shot.
Yeah.
So where was it, Debbie? Do you know? You can win $10 from Bill. But where was Tin Cup Alley? So we may get an answer to that one. So, but anyway, so that's interesting. This has just been fascinating. We've covered some stuff I've never heard you talk about.
Well,
that's
I got
really
plenty
good.
you hadn't heard
Yeah,
of.
I know. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Here we go. Connie Head Lowe is saying they were holding their tin cups to get the liquor. Don't know where they were though. They were holding their tin cups for liquor. Okay.
In Nashville and many other towns had a tin pan alley or a tin cup alley, but I don't know. It must have been something
to do with that. Okay.
Wanted to have a street that name or something.
Yeah, but anyway.
But while we're thinking about that, I want to talk real quick about restaurants. Somebody asked me about restaurants in Springfield. Of course, back in the 50s, there just wasn't anything hardly.
Right.
There was, I remember the Corner Grill, which was on the corner of 5th and Main in the old Colonial Hotel. And it was a little rectangular piece to the hotel, and that was a Corner Grill. That's the first thing I can remember having. But I want to tell you a funny story. Bill Wingo had Rainbow Grill, which is on Memorial, right after Memorial opened in the 50s, late 50s. But he had another restaurant called 10th Avenue Cafe. The building is still there, but if you're going out Cheatham Street, cross railroad tracks, take the first street to the right, there's a little building on the left, and I don't know what's there now, but that was the 10th Avenue Cafe.
Okay.
And Bill Wingo, we always went there on Sunday after church to eat. And it was, 3 vegetables and a meat type thing, And
Meat
Bill,
and 3.
Meat and 3.
Meat and 3.
Bill Wingo was very outgoing and forward, He had another place back on 431 South years before that. But anyway, the funny thing that I found digging up on there, before Bill Wingo had it, there was a guy named Charlie Haley that owned it. And it was a restaurant. And Charlie Haley was going to start his business there, and he needed a manager to run the restaurant because he had other things going on. So he talked to a man about managing this restaurant, and he told the man, he said, how much would you take to operate the restaurant for him? And the man says, $80 a week. He said, okay, you're on. So they started operating. About a month later, Charlie Haley realized he wasn't making any money. So he goes to the guy and he says, I'm not making any money. Are you by chance taking any money out of the cash register? He said, yes, sir. I take $80 a week. I told you I would take $80 a week. Meanwhile, Charlie was writing him a check for $80 a week too. So the man was doing what he said he would do. He said, I'll take $80 a week.
And then
he was taking it out of the. But
so did they work it out and keep going?
Well, I don't know what they did after that. But,
that's funny. That's funny.
Then we had little sandwich shops and beer joints like Midway Cafe, Paris Cafe. There was a lot of little places like that all over.
Paris Cafe in Springfield.
Well, Paris is where Brown and Brown is now.
Okay, what was that like?
Well, it was a house of ill repute upstairs.
Oh no!
And they sold other things down below there, but you could go in from the back. There's an alley behind it now, and there was a big stairway there. I remember it.
Oh my
I don't know why I remember that, but anyway, when they were remodeling it, I saw it, and stairway went upstairs, and I have a picture of it actually of the front with the Paris Cafe, but.
You need to put that up on social media.
Paris Cafe has been there a long time, long before me. But down the street from just north of Paris Cafe was a little furniture store, and they had a neon sign that showed a rocking chair rocking back and forth.
Oh, how funny.
To me, when we came to town in the 40s, and I was born in 44, so late 40s or early 50s, we would come to town. we moved to town when I was 6, but before that, we would come to town. It was always, I always wanted to see the rocking chair because I never knew not anything like that around.
Yeah.
No neon signs, and they had this sign there, and just especially at nighttime, it's real neat. You know,
I bet
but they had it going in the daytime.
Yeah.
It rocked back and forth, and I'd stand there and stare at that thing forever, thinking, how did they do that?
Isn't that fascinating? And look at things today.
This store had a location in Clarksville and Springfield, but that across the street was Stuart Williams, and across from Stuart Williams, next to the GS Bohr building, was Springfield Furniture, which my dad bought it from Toby Green, and Mr. I.D. Lewis opened a loan company inside that store, so he made people loan to buy furniture. Sort of a neat setup, you know.
Well, they
but
still
anyway.
do that in the car lots. I mean, you have financing in the
well,
car lots,
true,
same kind of
they
thing.
did that.
Yeah. So interesting.
Well, we're almost to the top of the
And I haven't gotten an answer. John Cohey was saying, well, it's a nickname of an alleyway, but that's not good enough, John.
Not a nickname.
You gotta,
No,
It was called.
It was named. It had a name. Tin Cup Alley.
Tin Cup Alley, and he wants to know where it is, John. So you got to answer that. Not just that it was a nickname. It wasn't a nickname. It was actually
John's
called
one of my favorite listeners.
I love John.
He asked me a lot of questions.
He had a big week last week at Lipscomb, so that was awesome. I'm so excited for him.
I saw that. That's really
He's a
something.
sweet. Lee Marie's wants us to be sure and mention that they're having their TFA meeting tonight, and it's a summer potluck. You know, they do a big potluck. If you want to eat good,
I'm going.
yeah, and I mean they throw it down, and they do the same thing for the Republican breakfast. It's a potluck, and I mean you're gonna have some good eating, folks. But that's tonight at 6 p.m. at the American Legion Post 45 in Greenbrier. Put on a Hawaiian shirt. You got a Hawaiian shirt? It's a Hawaiian theme.
No, I don't think so. I went to Hawaii one time and I bought a shirt, but that's long gone.
You
now.
don't have to dress the theme, but let's just be real. Lee Marie loves to dress up. She just loves to dress up. So she's going to have.
She does more stuff. I don't see how she does.
I don't see how she does all she does either. She was at the country music thing they did at the Opry this weekend, and it looked just fabulous. And she looked beautiful. She had on a whole cowgirl outfit. If you go to her social media, she just looked awesome. I mean, she definitely knows how to get on stage and make an impression. Love you, sister. But go to TFA Summer Potluck tonight at 6 p.m. at the American Legion Post.
TFA stands for what?
Tennessee Firearms Association.
Okay.
I know them. I know my acronyms. I'm a school teacher.
They've had some interesting programs. I gave one time, but they had a DA from Clarksville there one time. It was very informative.
Yeah. It's very good stuff that they have. But they'll be there tonight. I don't know what the program is tonight, but I'm sure it'll be awesome, and you'll go out and have some really good food too, y'all. But so let's, let me double check and see if we had anybody answer the question. I have to jump between websites because we have the WSGI page. And I have to check there, and then also, so I'm jumping around here, making sure. When I'm sitting here, I'm paying attention. I'm just watching everybody's comments. I was hoping Debbie would come in and have an answer for you on that Tin Cup Alley, but
I'd love to give her the $10.
But she didn't get it. She didn't get it, and I don't see any answer on my page either. So, what is the answer, Bill?
Well, do you want to wait till next time?
We can.
All right.
You want to hold it over? Okay.
You can find it. You can find out. If you search around, you can find it. But
we'll start there when we get back.
I'll tell you this, it doesn't exist now.
Okay.
But I can tell you where it was. If you go there, you can see a little faint lane there where it was, where the street was.
Okay.
But
I'm just double checking. We didn't have any answers. Any parting thoughts? I mean, we're already done. This was fun. I knew this would be a great time.
Wait till next time, and you can get back on the air with us, and when you get on social media, and tell what you found.
Absolutely. That sounds fun.
Those archives. I hate to say that. They'll get mad at me for sending all those people up there.
We love y'all at the archives. That's a fun place. If you've never been to the archives, that is an interesting place. We researched our property, and it was very
well organized.
Very
place.
interesting.
Very well.
Well, thank you so much. And tonight is the school board meeting, so that means Dr. Danny Weeks. I've already checked with him. I reached out last week because I knew with it being summer schedule, he may have some vacation planned, but he's going to be in tomorrow, so we're going to get a chance to talk to Dr. Weeks tomorrow right here on 1100 WSGI. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Again, this is 1100 WSGI.